Good evening. This is Monday, April 18th, 2022. We're here for the City of Leawood Governing Body meeting. And I would ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Mayor Dunn is present and presiding. Councilmember Phila.
Here.
Councilmember Rawlings.
Here.
Councilmember Sippel.
Here.
Councilmember Kane.
Here.
Councilmember Osman.
Here.
Councilmember Harrison.
Here.
Councilmember Azeltine is absent. Councilmember Larson.
Here.
All right, thank you. Thank you. The second order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll ask, as you're able, please rise. We will face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. The next item is the approval of the agenda, and I don't believe I have any modifications to the agenda this evening, so I'd entertain a motion to approve as printed, please.
Move as printed. Second.
Motion from Ms. Kane, second from Ms. Harrison to approve as printed. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All right, the agenda is approved. And next, we go to citizen comments. We have a citizen who signed in to speak this evening on a non-agenda topic, Charles Bob Bertel. And if you could come forward, please, and state your name and address for the record. And if you could keep your remarks to 5 minutes, that would be appreciated. Good evening.
How are you? Charles Bertel. I'm here to talk about governance tonight. So I've been here a few times.
And your address, please?
Oh, 9221 Wenonga Road, Leawood, Kansas,
All right.
66206.
Thank you.
Sure, no problem. So I've been here a couple times, and I've had sort of more scripted stuff, but that hasn't worked. So I thought I'd just come tonight and talk about governance and your responsibility, fiduciary responsibility to the citizens of Leawood. And so to set that up, I think it's helpful to understand why I'm even here, which is you prosecuted my fiance for having a friendly dog that you consider to be a pit bull. Your law was struck down as unconstitutional, which Patty knows, and the judge ordered you to conform your law to a constitutional standard. And when that matter came back to the city of Leawood, you handed it to the person who drafted the law in the first place to correct it, which strikes me as something that would not be done in most contexts. You wouldn't allow someone with a clear conflict like that to resolve that conflict. Worse, it doesn't appear that you read the law that she drafted, that you passed, you voted on past Councilman Osman, after executive session. Because if you read the law, it actually, like I said last time, it kind of made it dumber, right? So it went from the dog has to look like a pit bull to the dog has to look and act like a pit bull. And so in the AKC standards that Patty has pointed to, which don't meet the constitutional standard that the judge laid out, he pretty clearly indicated that, you have to point to an objective standard and you have to give the animal control officers a way to sort of have a checklist approach to determining if it meets that standard, right? Otherwise, it's an unlawful use of the use of the legislative power by an executive body member, right, the police force. So in doing so, and by pointing back at the AKC standard, if you'd read it, which I know none of you did, it says the dogs are friendly. So in order for a dangerous dog in Leawood, a pit bull, it's National Therapy Dog Day or something too, I saw on your agenda, and that's with the exclusion of pit bulls, I'm sure, but in Leawood, for a pit bull dog to be dangerous, it now has to be considered friendly. So let that sink in for just a minute, because now your law that is supposed to be aimed at public safety and keeping dangerous dogs out of the community now actually only allows dangerous dogs to be in it. So the more important point is you would never hand a conflicted matter back to the person with the conflict to resolve. And as managers, it's your duty to provide oversight, which you clearly did not do. You might have wanted to have outside counsel review the work because after 20 years in an unconstitutional finding by a judge with jurisdictional authority, you might have wanted to take that a little bit more seriously, but you didn't. And it only, in my mind, triggers what else aren't you taking seriously? If this matter, which, again, this is a constitutional issue, right? You violated someone's constitutional rights with a law that Patty wrote, and then you gave it back to Patty to address. You didn't read it. If you did, you must not have understood what you were reading. And so what else? What else are the people of Leawood, suffering at your hands because you're just failing to, do your fiduciary duty for the citizens? Eventually we're going to get to talk about DEI policies. I was talking to the chamber director out there. The chamber has diversity, equity, and inclusion policies, but the city doesn't. That's just odd to me. And as someone who works in federal grants, I can tell you that you won't be eligible for federal dollars under the stimulus bill or otherwise, even from the Department of Transportation, to the extent those funds come with any kind of federal money, you won't be eligible for them. So backing all the way up, you don't let persons with conflicts resolve the matter. The law is still unconstitutional. And if you'd read the order, any of you, including your lawyer, you would know how it's supposed to read. And frankly, if you were doing your jobs, you would have signed it to outside counsel to say, hey, we just got spanked pretty hard by a district court judge in a motions practice. That's before the case. Before the case even got put on, he said, this is no good. So I'd ask that from now on, and in this regard, maybe have this law reviewed because it's still unconstitutional and every day it's on the books. It's harming the citizens of Leawood because it's exposing them to pecuniary risk. Somebody comes along, you enforce the law that's unconstitutional. I still have a minute and 57 seconds. You enforce a law that's unconstitutional and you're in this bind again, right? So the person against whom you enforce that the first time, from what I understand, is going to seek legal redress. There's going to be a second action, and it's all because you just couldn't take the time to slow down and do the right thing and open an agenda item on this. It's shocking to me. Again, I think from a management perspective, J.E. Dunn would never allow this kind of thing to happen, right? They would never give a conflicted party the resolution of that conflict matter. So please do your jobs from now on. Please have this reviewed. And please, I'm asking again, put this on the agenda so that the citizens can come out and tell you what they think about this. If they don't want the law changed, you'll hear that. But at least you'll know then. You'll know what your citizens think. But I don't see that happening because no one seems to care what the citizens actually think. So anyway, with that, I'll give you a minute back. Thank you.
That concludes our citizens who have signed in to speak this evening. Mr. Osmond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was not here the last time that Mr. Bertel came, but I would like to make a recommendation that we have a work session on this topic.
Are you putting that in the form of a motion?
Yes, please.
Is there a second? Okay, the motion dies for the lack of a second. Does that conclude your remarks? All right, thank you. All right, moving now to proclamation. We have National Animal Therapy Day, and I'm going to read portions of this into the record, and it will be sent to the person who requested it. Whereas there are thousands of Pet Partners therapy animal teams serving in communities across the United States, whereas Pet Partners therapy animal teams in the city of Leawood play an essential role in improving human health and well-being through the human-animal bond. Whereas Pet Partners therapy animal teams interact with a variety of people in our community, including veterans, seniors, patients, students facing literacy challenges, and those approaching end of life. Whereas these exceptional therapy animals who partner with their human companions bring comfort and healing to those in need. Now, therefore, I, Peggy Dunn, Mayor of the City of Leawood, Kansas, do hereby proclaim April 30th, 2022 as National Therapy Animal Day in the City of Leawood and encourage our citizens to celebrate our therapy animals and their human handlers. Further, I publicly salute the service of therapy animal teams in our community and in communities across the nation. Thank you. We have no presentations or recognitions this evening. We have no special business. We move now to consent agenda items 8A through M, and I would like to pull 8C and 8L. And I'll ask, is there anything else anyone would like to pull for discussion? If not, then a motion to approve the remaining portion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion from Mr. Osmond, second from Ms. Villa. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It's approved unanimously. And 8C was accepting the minutes of March 21st, 2022 work session, and I already communicated with the city clerk regarding page 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth, sixth paragraph down. It's just that it would be 1 million versus 9 million. We wish we had gotten 9 million from KDOT, but it was actually 1 million. It was around $900,000 plus, and I think that's where the 9 came from. But so I wanted to point that out as a matter of notation, and I would now accept a motion to accept I would entertain a motion to accept those minutes of March 21st, please.
Move to accept as corrected.
Second.
Motion from Ms. Kane, second from Mr. Sipple.
Good catch.
Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Aye.
All right, thank you. It's approved unanimously. 8L is the Fire Department Monthly Report. And I actually pulled this because I noted that we had a retirement. Jeff Anderson retired on March 14th after 24 years of dedicated service to our community, and I simply wanted to offer my congratulations and appreciation, and then welcome our new firefighter, Master Firefighter / EMT Nicholas Clark, who just started March 28th. So we welcome him and look forward to the opportunity to meet him at some point in the future. Oh, good. Wonderful. Thank you, Chief Fitzgerald. All right, I'll entertain a motion, please, for the Fire Department Monthly Report acceptance.
So moved.
Move to approve.
I think I had a motion from Ms. Phyllis, so
Sorry.
second from Ms. Harrison.
Didn't hear it, sorry.
That's all
Second.
right. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right, opposed, nay? It's approved unanimously. Thank you. In going to the mayor's report, I would like to offer sincere sympathies to the family and the friends of Emily Throckmorton, who passed away unexpectedly on March 31st at age 44. Emily was the daughter of Leawood residents and longtime Leawood volunteers Debbie and Dan Throckmorton, and we send our condolences during this difficult time. I attended the April Johnson-Wyandotte County's Council of Mayors meeting hosted by DeSoto Mayor Rick Walker, and Lauren Palmer with the Mid-America Regional Council was one of the presenters and talked about the local support they provide to 119 cities, of which we are one, in 9 counties. Director of Parks and Recreation and Arts, Chris Claxton, organized a table for 7 days, Make a Ripple, Change the World. And this was the Kindness Kickoff Breakfast was a new portion of their kindness events this year and marked the 8th anniversary of the tragic murders that took place on April 13th, 2014. I was joined by council members Julie Kane and Lisa Harrison, Chris Claxton, Holly York, Nick Sanders, and Stephen Powell. So thank you all for attending. I attended a DARE graduation at Nativity School where Officer Tim Babalola, did I say that correctly? He's been instructing an excellent program. It was obvious that he cared a lot about the students and they love him. And due to Chief Finger being out of town, Captain Brad Robbins stood in for him. This was the first in-person DARE graduation since the start of the pandemic. So it was very special. Councilmember Chuck Sipple joined me at the Johnson County Public Policy Luncheon, where Leawood Senator Kelly Warren and Representatives Stephanie Clayton and Carl Turner, who are our representatives, all served as panelists. And that concludes my mayor's report, and we will go now to council members' report. Councilmember Harrison regarding Leawood Economic Development Council suggestions.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think Ross is going to put, there we go, a presentation up for me. If you, I'll go back a slide to the start. There we go. So after attending several EDC, Economic Development Council meetings over the last 6 or 8 months, as one of the 2 liaisons with Council Member Phila, this topic keeps rising to the top, and it is my nature to try to solve problems. So as it is with, I think, all of us, or we wouldn't be sitting here. So I was asked to bring this to the council in a council member's report, so I put this little presentation together so that I might move forward the conversation. The conversation for what, for lack of a better word, more alternative housing in Leawood. The why behind this, I always start with the why, is that there's been so much conversation. I think most of us would agree that the 200 plus emails that we received in the last year regarding development along 135th Street was the most email we had received in many, many, many years with regards to one topic. Our constituents seem to have their eyes opened as to what they do want and do not want along 135th Street, 133rd, and 137th Street. I think all could agree, at least in the south part of Leawood, that people want to be able to downsize from their large homes into something and stay in Leawood, but they feel like there are no alternatives available to them, or very few alternatives available. And the EDC, as I said, has had many recent conversations about what could be done. And a lot of that has to do with making allowances for smaller lots, smaller setbacks, so that more dense housing could be built on the property that remains unbuilt. So I come to you all wondering what we can do to encourage alternative housing options in what would be called the 135th Street corridor. Should we consider reduced side yards and setbacks? Can we adjust building standards that would allow for garden-style duplex or triplex homes? And how do we, or can we, direct staff to create some plans to support these kinds of alternative housing? I went around and took some pictures over the last 2 weeks of some places that I consider to be examples. Prairie Fire along 137th Street has an area where these very small yard homes, individual single-family homes are built, as you can see, with 2- and 3-car garages, beautiful homes, and a narrow street, no shared walls, very little green space in the front yard or backyard, but lovely, lovely homes. Another example is closer to where I live at 133rd and Blue Ridge Boulevard in KCMO. It's kind of behind the Lowe's and behind the Walmart, for lack of a better geography description. That gives you what I consider to be just small, single-family homes with very small front yards, no attached shared walls, very small front yards, very small backyards. And then there's another division that somebody pointed out to me, subdivision of the Patrician Woods patio homes. This is a gated community, so I literally had to stand outside the gate to take this picture. But I know several people that live in this community, and they have very small backyards, very small side yards, but single-family homes again. I never knew about the Berkshire Villas because you kind of have to go looking for them. But rumor has it they sell about the day they go on the market, and that was before we had such a hot market. This reminded me of where my dad lives in Chicago because there are these little parking hubs. The streets are real narrow, the driveways are real small, but they have these little parking hubs where like 5 or 6 cars can be parked so that there's not so much on-street parking. But again, very small front yards, very small backyards, small side yards, but single-family homes. Tucked in behind the Berkshire subdivisions. So I'm not an expert on how we make changes to our LDO, but I would ask city staff and council members, so what do we do to try to encourage this sort of development? Home ownership, I think, has been discussed as opposed to rental up here many times, and I've heard a lot of people voice their in favor of home ownership, and we feel like it's good for Leawood. So what do we do to encourage this kind of development? How do we make changes to the LDO? And then finally, what's the timeline for this kind of change? So I know I've thrown a lot at you, Mark, and now that I've gotten to the very last slide of my presentation, I think to myself, wouldn't it have been lovely to give Mark a heads up as to what I was, and I'm sorry, I didn't think to do that. That would have been such a clever thing for me to do. So I apologize. So that's all I've got, but I was, like I said, asked to make a presentation about what the EDC has been talking about. I know Kevin Jeffries, president of the EDC, is here as well. If you have any questions, I hope I've represented well what has been on the agenda the last couple of meetings I've attended, but I really don't know what the next step is. So.
Well, thank you, Ms. Harrison. None of this is new, actually. We've talked about this for several years. But I know that as recently as the last Planning Commission work session, you all are in conversation about this. So I'm going to let you speak to that because I'm halfway through your DVD and haven't heard all of it.
This is something that we're looking at, and especially as far as the council, I know, after Cameron's court came through, there, as far as some ideas, as far as how to incorporate, maybe incentives for different types of housing, maybe to actually have kind of more of transects like you have in the 135th Street Community Plan that you don't really have in the Leawood Development Ordinance. And I think most of them are going to be addressed as far as the Leawood Development Ordinance, just because that's where you would get the most immediate impact. That's what the developers actually have to follow. And the 135th Street Community Plan would still be a guide. Within the MXD zoning district, it does make a lot of these things possible. When you have an interior setback, for instance, in MXD, it's a minimum of 10 feet instead of having a 40-foot front yard. And so if you remember Cameron's Court, there were some portions of it, especially, those single-family houses and those duplexes along there, they had much smaller front yards than what you typically would have as far as the 40-foot or the 30-foot front yard setback that you would need. So I think currently right now, we actually do have some tools to do that. When developers come in, that's what we're talking to them about. We're trying to, as far as get some additional housing types, encouraging them, pushing them as far as, not just one housing type, but more than one. Sometimes they're successful, sometimes they come back with the same thing. But I think we do have a lot of tools there, and we're currently looking at this, and it's something that we do want to take to the Planning Commission and back to the governing body.
Excellent.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. I knew you were, and that's why I thought it was a timely
Excellent.
conversation. Mr. Lambers?
I was just going to, are you done? I was going to do my report.
You thought you were going to do your report? Oh, in just a moment. We're not quite through with the council members' report. I
Well,
thought you
actually, I was
were,
going to follow up on him.
yeah, that's what I
because,
thought you were going to follow up on.
You know, like you said, everyone's trying to find a solution to this. It's not just us. I would say that what we probably need to consider is looking at a zoning classification that is mixed use, but only residential, and have it different residential types of uses, no commercial, no office, no restaurants, so that you at least can set out some parameters of reducing lot sizes, setbacks, different things that can make it all happen. And again, since you want ownership, I think that we just need to look at, well, it'd be best to have someone come to us with a plan that works, for us to try to get proactive and just say, here are some things that we can do to make the housing more affordable, but again, have mixture opportunities in terms of price point and sizes and types. And I think that's a direction that we should consider.
I do believe the product that you illustrated with a photo on the Missouri side is slab on grade, and we don't
Oh.
encourage that in
Yeah.
Leawood.
No.
Even if it's not a finished lower level, it is because
Well,
of,
again, you know, that's not where you want to go in terms of saving money. I
Right.
mean, that's,
No, I agree. I couldn't tell from the street.
yeah.
right.
Wouldn't have included that if I'd known that, sorry.
I just happen to know that
There
from
you
Ms.
go.
Kane's
There you go.
education. Yes. Ms. Phillip?
Don't go away, Scott. So is that something that we need to make a motion on as a board to instruct?
Well,
you
I'd say let's see what the planning commission wants to go forward with.
they're
I'd say,
talking
yeah, I'd like to ultimately see the council direct us to come up with a specific zoning category for mixed use residential only. And again, see
so
where we
that-
can take that.
What you just said didn't compute. You said, wait and see what the planning
Yes.
commission.
They're in the middle of it right now.
They're in the middle right now.
But then you said we should direct them.
Well, they're going to come up with something for you to consider. And I'd say if it accomplishes, they may go in a different direction. I don't know. I'm just saying, I would suggest that you consider my offer if it's, you know, different from what the planning commission recommends.
Yeah, I don't
Okay,
think
okay. If it's
now is
different,
the
then
time
we can
because,
direct them. But if we like it, then we're done.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
thank
right
you.
now, they're right in the middle of this.
No, I
so-
just missed that "or"
Okay,
in what he said.
Okay, yes.
okay,
That's all I needed clarification.
okay. Very good.
And-
Ms. Kane and Ms. Harrison.
And as I understand it, the Planning Commission has had our notes from these past meetings, so I think they're well aware of what we think right now.
I think they actually watch us on YouTube,
Yeah,
from comments I've heard.
yeah, me too. So,
Yeah.
and then I know this, with the last meeting, they specifically referenced that they had a copy of our notes, our minutes rather, from our meeting. So I do think from what I understand as well, that they're pretty understanding of what direction we are going in. And what they give us might be different, but I think they're aware.
And if I'm not mistaken, our minutes, the minute they're available and approved are online for anyone, not just the Plan Commission. Anyone can view them.
Oh, there you
I
have
think it'd be nice if we shared the slides that Lisa took as well.
These slides to be in a part of our minutes, you can probably incorporate those.
I am
thank
pretty
you.
part of that PowerPoint, so thank you.
And I-
My question has to do with communications of changes in our plans. So since I worked in the communications world for so long, once we do make the decisions, whether it starts with Mark's team, comes up here, we pass it, can we plan to communicate, for example, with the Home Builders Association of Greater Kansas City, send them a press release or something so that the right people know what we're now allowing? The people who build the houses, for example, would readily know what we now allow in Leawood so that word gets around, because if we have a great change in our policy and nobody knows about it, it's like that tree falling in the forest.
Well, I'd look at the gentleman just sitting outside as being a major conduit for that information. And certainly we can put it on our webpage if we come up with something that has changed and say this is a new ordinance regarding this, but really, you know, the communications that Kevin engages in with people who want to develop in the city, particularly builders, would be the best conduit for that. And again, Clearly, the message would be intended to say if we've got a mixed-use district, this doesn't mean different zoning categories, but residential uses. Because as soon as someone thinks mixed use, they think of all three of the categories. We need to make it very clear that this category does not have that component to it. And that's what also turns people off when they say, well, I'm not a
Right.
office builder, so I'm not even going to look
Exactly.
at it.
Exactly.
Mr. Torres, I bet you have a line to communicate with all the folks that you regularly.
Yes, Travis Torres, Director of Building and Code Enforcement. I mean, if that's the wishes of council, we certainly could send that out. I've got some contacts with the Kansas City Home Builders Association and could ask them to, send that out to all their folks, for sure. So, no problem.
And keep in mind, per Mr. Klein's former communication to us, the largest tract on 135th that is single ownership is 23 acres. So we're not talking huge parcels.
Yep.
So, of our
Perfect.
117 acres that are left along the whole corridor. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Harrison. Appreciate that. Now, moving to City Administrator Report. Mr. Lambers, did you have something else? Well, I thought you.
I want to follow up on what he was saying with the planning commission.
Okay.
Talk about what I was
Got it.
planning to see a direction for us.
Okay. So thank you for that.
He
All
took
right.
it as a segue.
I certainly didn't want to curtail any further reporting from you. Thank you. We have no other staff report. We go now to 13, committee recommendations. Ordinance approving a preliminary plan and final plan for Bi-State Centennial Park, International Aviation, located north of 141st Terrace and east of Kenneth Road. And do we have an applicant?
It's my understanding they're coming on Zoom.
They're coming on Zoom?
Yes, good evening. My name is Jay Green.
Yes,
And I'm
Mr. Green,
Anderson.
do you have a camera that you can put on for us?
I do.
Oh,
I'm
there you
in-
are. Okay, great. Thank you. And if you could state your address as well, please?
Yes, so I'm with Anderson Engineering. Address is 1701 Walnut Street, Suite 300, Kansas City, Missouri, 64108.
All right, thank you.
And so just giving you some of the basics of what's in the report. The owner on this project is International Aviation, LLC. What's proposed is a one-story, 2,800 square foot building. The property is already platted as Lot 16 Bi-State Business Park. And as you mentioned, the location, the exact address is 14105 Cambridge Lane. The lot is zoned as a BP Planned Business Park. That fits also within the comprehensive plan, and all the surrounding parcels are, that kind of use, business park / industrial uses. So we are the civil engineer on the project and the applicant. Some basics of the site. The parcel grade falls about 12 feet from west to east across the site. So the front side of the building, as you see on the elevations, is about at street level, and then exposed foundation on the back. One of the stipulations from staff was that the initial building elevations, they stepped down the brick treatment on the foundations, but it was requested that that be carried all the way down to grade, so that change has been made. Additionally, there are some, service doors for the warehouse portion that were located a little closer to the main entrance to the office. And as staff requested, those have been moved closer to the south, adjacent to the trash enclosure. Just over 5 parking stalls are required, and 6 are provided per plan. Traffic impact study analysis was provided and approved, along with a stormwater study. And really, those are kind of the main parts from the civil engineering standpoint. I guess if anybody has any questions for me, be open to that. We also have the contractor who's been heavily involved. He's also on the call if you have any questions about the business operation or building materials. He could probably answer those questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Green. Questions for Mr. Green? Ms. Kane?
Thank you. It's a handsome building, Mr. Green. It'll be a nice addition. I only wondered if there will be people coming besides staff members to the building to make purchases out of the warehouse. Will there be customers, I guess is my question? For no reason really, other than I'm curious with the 5 parking spots.
Yes, and I'm not familiar exactly with the operations of the business. Edward Susi?
Yes.
I just butchered your last name, but he could probably answer that for you.
Yes, good evening, council. I can answer that question. My name is Edward Susi. I'm with MAR Building Solutions. So to answer that question, it'll be primarily the owners that will be involved at the location. There might be an occasional meeting with a client that they have, but other than that, it'll just be primarily the owners that will be involved there.
Thank you, Mr. Isusi. Were
Thank you.
there
No,
any other
that's all-
questions?
That's all I had.
Okay. Anything else from anyone? Mr. Sipple?
I had a question for the applicant. Is the company already doing business in the metropolitan area, and this is a relocation, or are they coming in from a different area to South Leawood?
Yes, I can answer that question as well. They currently live in the city of Leawood and they work out of their home. They live within a mile of this location and they're just looking for a site to build on and to store, all their small aircraft parts and basically do business out of this location.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from anyone? Mr. Osmond?
Move to approve?
Second.
Motion to approve by Mr. Osmond and a second from Mr. Sipple. If there's no further discussion from anyone, roll call, please.
Councilmember Kane,
Aye.
Councilmember Sippel,
Aye.
Councilmember Rawlings,
Aye.
Councilmember Phila,
Aye.
Councilmember Osmond,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrison, Councilmember Larson.
Aye.
All right, it's approved. And Mr. Green, Mr. Isusi, good luck with your project. We're delighted to have someone who both lives and works in Leawood,
Yep.
putting up a beautiful new facility. So thank you.
Homegrown project.
Yes, we wish you a lot of success. Thank
I
you.
appreciate that. Thank you for having us and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have no old business. We go now to item 15, new business, scheduled governing body meeting on Monday, May 2nd at 7 p.m.
Move to approve?
A motion from Ms. Phila, I think second from maybe Mr. Rawlings. Any discussion?
Madam Mayor?
Oh, Mr. Osmond?
Yes, I would like to bring something up on this evening. I noticed that there is not dinner prepared beforehand for this evening on May 2nd, and I was hopeful that this individual would email council, but due to her school schedule and dance schedule. She did not get the email at in time. So this person will be emailing council in the next day as an invitation for a dinner beforehand.
Will it be on site here?
If you choose to attend, it will be at the Barstow School.
Oh, could you be related to this person?
No comment, but don't be surprised if it has the same last name.
Oh,
Actually,
see.
I will bring this up. I'm very proud of her. She took the initiative a couple weeks ago, was very concerned. We have a sister city school, actually, in Ukraine, and she's putting together a fundraiser at the school for dinner prior to the boys and girls tennis match, that they will be having a dinner from 5:30 to 7, and that's where I will be. They will be selling tickets. They will have a press release, and she was going to invite the council, knowing that I had to be at this event that evening. So just look for it in your inbox.
So knowing that we would have to depart that around the 6:30 mark, you could probably facilitate getting us in and out of this dinner in an hour?
There
timeframe?
might be prearranged tickets ahead of time.
Yes.
And a
Okay.
dedicated table.
What is your ticket quota?
We will watch for the email, and thank you for sharing it.
Thank you.
And now, if there's no further discussion, all in favor of the motion to schedule the meeting for 7 p.m. that evening, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. All right. Thank you. Having no further business to come before us this evening, we are adjourned.
I did note May 16th canceled, covered